bienvenue sur mon live. Bienvenue sur autopsysimulator. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous montrer quel métier de base j'aurais souhaité faire. Dans quelle branche de la vie j'aurais dû me retrouver. Parce que oui, de base, votre streameuse souhaitait faire des autopsies sur les corps. Oui, c'est une envie bizarre de métier. Pourquoi je ne l'ai pas fait? Tout simplement parce que c'est 10 ans de médecine et que je n'avais pas la thune pour le faire. Mais, grâce aux développeurs de jeux vidéo, je peux actuellement le faire pour seulement 20 €. Par contre, je vous préviens, si le premier crime c'est une femme morte dans une cuisine, je crie au sexisme. Ok, je m'appelle Jack Hadman. Okay.
I thought I had made it painfully obvious for the last time. No, please don't call me again and stop inquiring about my wife. Damn journalists. They don't let me work.
Putain.
God damn it.
Non, pas ça.
I'm not in the best frame of mind to record a lecture for my students now. I'm feeling completely broken.
Oh non.
Where did I leave my meds this time?
Les gars, je viens de commencer le jeu, je suis déjà veuf. Je viens de commencer le jeu. Je suis alcoolique, j'ai des médicaments, j'ai plus de femme. En plus, faut que j'aille chercher mes cachets dans les toilettes. En plus, je suis prof pour des étudiants. J'ai vraiment tout loupé dans ma vie. Ah! Pourquoi à chaque fois que je commence un nouveau jeu, je suis un homme qui a perdu sa femme? Pourquoi?
Pathology. How to combine the hands of a surgeon, the passion for history, and an exceptionally strong stomach.
Ouais, ok. Ok, faut pas que je... Apparemment, je... Oh, ok, non, ça va. C'était juste... C'était le temps que ça charge. Ok.
Let's hope I'm not caught short this evening.
Ah oui, je peux vraiment aller partout en soi. Bon, je vais aller chercher mes médicaments du coup dans les toilettes. Alors, le minimum, quand tu travailles dans un truc avec des morts, c'est peut-être que la chose soit au minimum inclus. J'enlève le flou de mouvement. Ok, attends.
And get back to work. I need to set the camera first.
Dans la réserve, donc c'était là.
This place is starting to look like a hoarder's dream, rather than a storage room.
Où est ma caméra? Ah,
Now remember, Jack, don't forget, hit the record button this time.
Oh. Encore une fois, je suis toute seule. J'ai l'impression qu'il n'y a personne qui travaille ici. Je suis laboratoire.
But the word is, the lab will be open tomorrow.
Merde. Je savais bien évidemment où c'était. Je sais où je travaille. J'ai envie de voir ça fait quoi si je l'enlève.
Alerte à la cochonne!
Attendez. On va le laisser. On va le laisser. C'est un peu trop détaillé.
Now, I just have to get everything in frame.
Alors.
This should be fine. November 20th, 1991.
Franchement, vous imaginez si j'avais pas mis le fou, on aurait vu sur ça.
Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. This autopsy is conducted by Jack Hadman. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the autopsy room. Today, we'll have the dubious pleasure of following a full autopsy, step by step. For those of you who have already performed your first autopsy, this will refresh your basic knowledge. In turn, for those whose knowledge is only theoretical, I advise not to watch this after a meal. Scalpel, scissors, syringe, magnifying glass, knife. I guess I forgot to clean the knife. Police report. That will contain all sorts of pertinent information as to who the deceased might be and what potentially happened to them. So, let's take a closer look, shall we?
Là. Ok. Parcourir les informations du dossier de la police.
The deceased's name is Tobias Chambers.
Ok.
Locally known as Old Toby. Homeless and unemployed for at least a couple of years. The deceased was found on the outskirts of a parking lot at a gas station, where he often begged and persistently offered drivers to wash their car windows. The body was noticed by a station employee during the morning shift. Initially, he thought that someone had thrown some boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize the pile of clothes as the body of a man. Signs of libation were found around the body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket. He worked most of his life at the local port dealing with unloaded cargo. He was fired for being drunk and starting fights. His son runs a hardware store on his own. His wife left him years ago. That's it.
Ok.
It's worth remembering the context around the scene of a death. This allows you to better interpret any traces found on the body. I shouldn't start the procedure without gloves.
Les gants, les gants, les gants, les gants, ils sont où les gants? Là.
Now it's our turn to take some pictures for our files. If I can just remember where I left the camera. Aha! There you are. I knew it was here somewhere. As I mentioned at the beginning, before we begin the internal examination, we need to document the cadaver and the condition it arrived
Là, il a un coup de couteau, il a des bleus là.
Try and stick to the top-down rule, but this is not always possible. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility, not the perfect frame.
Ah, une photo globale. Chut, déjà je commence mal.
Voilà.
Pile sur la table quoi. Et là ça va être mon préféré. Là, il a une coupure, enfin, une cicatrice. Déjà elle date. Là il a des bleus. Apparemment ça compte pas. Peut-être pas assez près. Ah il a les pieds bleus. Attendez. Ah. Ouh, ouais, ses pieds sont morts. Trop petites, ah ouais, j'aurais cru que c'était pour le froid. Ah, un coup à la tête. Quoi? Ah ok, parce que je sais pas, c'est vrai.
It will be necessary to check whether this injury was severe enough to cause damage to the brain.
Ok. Et pour moi, genre, j'aurais dit ça, quoi. Qu'il doit y avoir une autre blessure quelque part. Salut. Wesh, attends. Elle est où la dernière blessure? De quoi bien vu pour un mort? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Les mains? Ah, elles sont noires. Elles sont un peu comme les pieds. Les mains mimi.
In a moment, we will check which of our initial observations will be worthy of further consideration. But before we get to that, I need to write down some basic data.
Les photos sur le tableau. Ok, là. Ok, démarrage. Réaliser l'autopsie. Je le fais comment? Ah, ok. Chamber! Chamber! Chamber est devenu alcoolique!
Every pathologist must keep a detailed record of every
Oh.
step of the autopsy. This not only allows you to track the procedure, but also collates the results together, upon which you may back up your conclusions. So, enough of the boring prep.
Je vous jure, le jeu est en train de me passionner.
Spots I photographed earlier. For this, you're going to need a magnifying glass.
Examiner les zones d'intérêt à la loupe. Ok. Table, les outils, la loupe.
Which spot first?
Pour moi, ça c'est une cicatrice qui date. Donc en vrai, pour moi, il n'y a pas d'intérêt à la regarder en première. Les pieds, comme il a dit, ça peut être les chaussures, mais comme il avait l'air de faire froid, donc il y a moyen en vrai que les deux là, ça soit le froid. Après, il est bagarreur, donc les mains, ça peut être aussi à force de se battre. Mais c'est vrai que le coup à la tête, je pense qu'il serait plus intéressant de le regarder en premier.
The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. Add alcohol, which I can clearly smell. And this was an accident just waiting to happen.
Ok. Ouais, dans tous les cas, en fait, je vais devoir tout regarder quand même.
Burn mark, no
Une
doubt
brûlure.
painful, but it's not pertinent for this case.
Indiquer les blessures trouvées sur le mannequin de l'écritoire, 4 endroits. L'écritoire, c'est shift. Non, ça c'est tab. Pardon.
First, I mark the location of the injuries and make notes for each one.
Là.
Head wound. Definitely,
Là.
even though this type of
Là
wound
et
would
là.
not if Toby's body was cold for a prolonged period. The frostbite could have resulted from the body's defense reaction. The safety of the
Possible
internal
cause du
organs is
décès
more
indiqué.
important than fingers, nose, or ears. As you can see, we don't have much to go on. Let's write down what preliminary causes of death we can think of.
Alors, indiquer analyser sur le buisson.
Various types of accidents are a common cause of death among the
Chute,
homeless and
ouais.
the elderly. Perhaps old Toby slipped and accidentally hit his head. This is of no interest to us. The nights have been particular considering the conditions in which he slept. His body may have become
Hypothermie.
hypothermic. Since the deceased clearly smelled of alcohol, I'll add alcohol poisoning to our list. We still have one thing left from the basics. Rigor mortis.
La rigidité, ok. Et ça, je fais comment?
Well,
Ok.
we take our
On prend la
deceased
main
by
du
the hand,
cadavre.
gradually we raise it.
Croque-lui le doigt de pied pour voir s'il est bien mort. Alors, je t'avoue, j'ai pas trop envie. Surtout quand tu vois l'état de son pied. Ah, mais il est raide!
Now let it go. As you can see, the hand falls loose. What's the conclusion?
Bah, il est mort.
Death must have occurred more than 72 hours ago. The police information appears correct.
Putain, juste en faisant ça, il peut savoir. Putain, c'est chaud. D'accord,
That
là.
trauma seems the most promising, so we'll start there. For this,
Là, ça va être
I
intéressant.
need an oscillating saw.
Elle ou la scie.
The cut is made from ear to ear.
Ah, ok. Faut que je reste là-dedans, quoi.
After which, we remove the skin and the top of the skull.
Et où ça va? Commencer à analyser une poussée du cerveau en l'examinant.
After the basic examination, we can see that the brain's cerebral gyri in both hemispheres are symmetric. The brain looks good. Let's take a cross-section.
Mais c'est trop bien!
Some pathologists prefer to examine organs without removing them. However, for me, it's much more convenient to examine them on a board, which we'll do now.
Mais c'est génial! Elle est où la planche? Pardon.
Holding a long, narrow blade knife in the dominant hand, we slowly cut the cranial nerves on both sides, all the time pulling the brain towards us.
Wesh. C'est très très long. Hein.
So far, so good.
On dirait un steak.
The hematomas seems to have had no effect on the brain.
Reprendre l'autopsie. Genre, attends. Non, là?
We can rule the fatal accident out as well. Brain is in good condition, so we have no choice but to proceed to the internal examination of the other organs.
Ok.
I grab a scalpel from my kit. The incision should be in the shape of a letter Y. We use a deep cut to reach all the way to the ribs and to penetrate the abdominal wall.
C'est trop bien. J'adore. Un dos de poulet, ouais aussi.
All right. Now we peel back and separate the skin. Now, we need to remove the ribs. We'll need the loppers for this. Quite a satisfying crunch, for some anyway. After removing the cartilage tissue, we can see widespread black.
It's Pikachu! Merci pour le follow, Pew! Ok.
Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Alice smoked too. It didn't kill her, but... what was I talking about? Lungs. Yes.
C'est plus où il en est mort.
Advanced inflammation.
Ok. Ouais, j'allais dire, ça se trouve, il fumait. Ah, merde. La seringue.
Specifically 3. From the eye, the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it.
Dans l'œil?
This is very useful in indicating long-term alcohol abuse.
Oui, c'est ça, exactement.
Left on the bladder, we draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. Now we take our samples to the centrifuge. But before I do that, I need to find my notebook.
Okay.
My dyscalculia means that I always double-check the settings. Please excuse me while I run and fetch it.
Dans le bureau, récupérer le carnet comportant les valeurs correctes de la dose centrifugeuse. Et pourquoi il l'a pas pris avant le ref? Ah, c'est pas ça mon bureau.
This old thing is covered in stains. I should check this out under the microscope sometime. Let's get back to the examination.
Bonjour.
We put all of the samples into the rotor.
Ok.
Now, we set the appropriate time and speed.
Alors, les notes. Temps 15 minutes, vitesse 70. Et 70.
Okay, let's roll. A considerable collection. Oh shit, the fuses again. Where were we? Oh yes, the blood alcohol concentration.
Pas trop ça.
Let's see what we've got here. Everything's separated as it should. Our lab is closed until tomorrow after the last, incident. However, considering that Toby's favorite eau de parfum appears to be ethanol, I'm guessing the results won't surprise me at all. Let's go further. We will now focus on the cardiovascular system, specifically the heart.
Reprendre l'autopsie, ouais.
We remove the organ and examine it close. We look for dark hypoxic areas, clots, or other elements that stand out as abnormal.
Là.
At first glance, the heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that would have contributed to Toby's death. Now let's take a closer look at the stomach. Size is normal, healthy, and as expected, the stomach has no major external damage.
Ça doit pas être l'alcool du coup.
We must now cut it open and inspect inside. We will do it carefully so that its contents do not spill out. We open the stomach along the greater curvature, from the heart to the pyloric end. Oh, I already feel like there's something left inside.
Oops.
Okay, large amount of gas, small amounts of yellow, grayish food content, resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or the bulk of his stomach had already found a way out. Looks like I'll have to find the missing contents. There are two ways here. One is obvious. And
Asphyxie, okay.
It couldn't have been suffocation, could it? I'll add this to the list and move on to the deceased's neck. At first glance, the trachea looks normal. Same result as with the stomach. The external inspection doesn't tell us anything. This time we'll cut on a tray. While cutting such a small organ as the trachea, we must make a precise incision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the scalpel as we would a pen. And after careful examination and deduction, we've got it. A clogged trachea. It's time to summarize the whole thing. Based on the report and preliminary documentation, it's safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep on his back. Then, the gastric contents refluxed and flooded the airways, causing death. That's why we don't forget about the recovery position at dorm parties.
Sympa. Du coup, bah... accident.
And now it's all clear. The death was suffocation. Now, signature. The mystery is solved. But for us, this is not the end. First, the dead body needs to be cleaned up. For this, we will need to close the body and grab the needle. First, we unroll the skin flaps. And then, we sew the deceased back. I'm using the baseball stitch technique. This stitching method is very strong and quick to do.
Ah, ça va bien.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Now we say goodbye to the deceased and put them safely in the fridge, ready for the next stage of their journey. God, I'm tired. I'll drop these samples off at the lab on the way to the bar.
Pourquoi je le sens mal?
I'll call Stephen. I don't feel like drinking alone today.
Ok. Bon. J'ai cru que j'allais genre avoir un screamer ou une connerie. Sa femme. non, un squelette. Bla 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 bla. Pardon. Bah ouais. Ah. Ah. Est-ce que le son ça va toujours? J'ai tellement le remake de Woody dans Toy Story quand il se fait engloutir par les jouets. Non. En vrai, je pense que si j'avais vraiment travaillé en autopsie, je pense que moi, ça m'aurait fait flipper d'être toute seule le soir. Je pense que j'aurais pas